And welcome back. This week we are continuing our series after a one episode delay, and we're going to talk about the most positive things from each guild in Ravnica. I'm Levi.
I'm Jacoby.
And I'm Joe.
And this is the Thought Vessel. Welcome to the show. All right. Well, this is a very special week. Obviously, talking about the positive parts of the Ravnican guilds. We are on a good vibe kick here. So, Joe, what is one positive thing that has been going on with you lately?
Well, I got another audiobook to record.
Oh, is this one all smutty?
No.
That's even better.
Yeah, more people can listen to it.
Hi.
So, for context here, our friend Joe decided to get an audiobook deal as a voice actor, but he didn't read through the book first, and we found out along the way that it was
I'm going to let
pure
you know.
smut.
I'm going to let you know it was not. I learned along the way. I went into that job knowing it was smut.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure he demonstrated the gigantic red flag that was like, oh, I got a job. It's smutty. Didn't read the book until he actually started the job, I think.
The actual thing that happened with that book was I didn't know how in the sauce it was. And I found out the literal first chapter.
That's always fun.
He's like, how bad could it? Oh.
Yeah, the main male character really out there. It was very interesting to read. This new one though is a high fantasy, think Tolkien-esque. Literally starts out with dwarves under a mountain that they've lived in for 900 years. And even had a nice little talk with the author about it today to just get the names just right. Because fantasy names, oh boy, they're complicated.
Always are.
I'm a dwarf and I'm digging a hole.
Diggy, diggy, hole.
I'm
Diggy, diggy, hole.
Throwback to Retro Command Zone right there.
It's going to take a while, but the fact that I'm getting more audiobooks is really nice. It's helping out since some of the other work is starting to dry up a bit. It's summer. There's so many different channels out that I've been recording scripts for that need to fight for attention. Some of them have even gone to AI, and I hate that.
Proud of you.
Yeah, that's the world we're living in.
Pay artists for what they're worth. Don't go to AI, especially since recently a lot of AI has, because they've been producing so much, they've now been training off of their own shit. So now it's just an incestuous AI mess.
Mm-hmm.
Don't snort your own product.
Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting where you have a lot of different AI algorithms. Like the first one we had when we taught a computer how to play chess and it went against Garry Kasparov, which was a grandmaster at the time, considered the best in the world. He was able to beat it the first few times, and then it eventually started kind of learning how to get better.
Because it only played against humans, and because it only played against humans and not like other computers, it was able to get better because it was basing it off humans.
Well, the crazy part is the first attempt was just, we're going to go with historical data and kind of figure out what moves create winning situations and develop from there. When they started teaching Stockfish some of the future algorithms, just teach it the rule of the game and have it play against itself like millions of times, we cannot come close to beating it anymore. It is so far ahead of what humans are capable of doing. So it's truly fascinating to kind of see like the ramifications of a little bit. At some point, if AI starts learning how to lie and things, like it could be absolutely devastating.
You mean like what happened with the Google AI? Sure, you can eat rocks.
Think of it this way. So the reason why the whole like Nigerian prince scam is always like riddled with typos and doesn't make a lot of sense is because they're trying to filter out the most gullible people and just going after those individuals because they have a higher hit rate of actually getting money off of them. If you start adding more intelligent AI that can fool people, you might be able to like double or triple the number of candidates these companies can go after. And that is really disturbing and really sick.
Which is fair.
But
now
we are on positive today, so we're not going to worry about that. Good vibes only. You got your audiobook. Jacoby, what you got going on?
I'm getting into axe throwing.
Getting into axe throwing?
Yeah, I'm trying to join a league.
Doing that lumberjack shit.
I wouldn't call it lumberjack, more like advanced darts.
It is a lot of fun. That is one
Darts Plus.
That is one hobby that I don't care if I'm good at. I don't care if I'm bad at. I will just do it for 2 hours straight. It's just fun throwing an axe into some wood.
It's super fun. And that is why I want to get good at it. Because I want to be able to go to the league and be like, yeah, I could throw and actually like compete.
Versus what I did when we finished recording the podcast last time and we went to axe throwing and I just did full NPC human mode, stood there like a meeple, throw axe. I was Joe throw axe action.
It was your first time and you had a blast, which is all I cared about.
Yeah, but like it still worked. I got bullseyes.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And that's one fun part about axe throwing is everyone's technique is just going to be a little bit different. You don't have a standard like handle length or anything for somebody. You just kind of have to figure out what works for you.
That's a factor for sure. And then there's certain technique that's just universal, but everybody's different. And because every body is different, every person uses it the same, uses it slightly different.
Because I know that the people that were there literally kept putting in their own advice. And when we were following that advice, we started to get real bad.
She was real small and she was using her small body advice. She is not small. We are big.
She is small, we big. It doesn't work all the way.
But it was sound advice. Just, I don't think it applied to us as much.
I will say that there was some advice that I did take because it did seem like it was about to break the X, such as don't throw with your non-dominant hand.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
I did that.
That's the best kind.
Not when you don't own the axe, Levi.
Yeah.
Throw two at the same time and go crazy.
Not as a beginner. That's a bad idea. That's how you break axes you don't own and or do own, and then you're sad one way or the other.
Yeah, you get to be like, oh no. And then they were like, okay, well, here's the bill. Oh no.
All right. Well, kind of moving on to me here. We did announce this on our X/Twitter page and Facebook, but I have taken a freelance position with Cool Stuff Inc. to be writing articles at the frequency right now of a couple times per week. Every time I get an article posted, I'll be sure to share it on there. But that's been really exciting to have the blog kind of transform into something new. So I'll be writing with Cool Stuff Inc. here in the moving forward. So I've been doing some top 10 lists and some really interesting articles kind of talking about like, is Magic the Gathering dying? Kind of exploring the different reasons why people are thinking that. I recently did one that was what Magic the Gathering color you are and kind of exploring the different colors and the base of the personality. So it's just been a lot of fun. I've really been enjoying it.
Yeah, and I've been retweeting them as well.
I'm just not on Twitter, sorry.
That's fair. That is fair. But
It
we
is, in fact,
collectively are on Twitter
it-
/X.
Yeah, but like also, it's a cesspool of hive and villainy and blah, blah, blah.
It is.
Just leave me alone.
I basically just go on there to post the content so y'all can find it a little bit easier, and then we just kind of run away.
Except for the one post that was not related to the podcast at all, which was the introduction of the budget boosters from Saffron Olive.
Yeah.
I saw that. I was just like, huh, okay.
Watsy reinvented shrinkflation. I wanted to
Nice.
share with the world.
If you didn't see it, they're introducing 7 card booster packs again with no guaranteed rare.
For much cheaper.
I don't care.
At the rate that it is, if it is like $1, probably worth it. If it's $2, you're erring on the side of them. Don't want it, bud. $3 is right out.
Someone brought up the idea that I really liked of making like popper draft boosters. That would be really cool. Like, obviously, you wouldn't be buying these for value, but like, it would give a cheap alternative to drafting for LGSs. Because like, when you go to draft, it's going to cost you like $30, $40 versus like, I don't know, fire off like a $10, $15 draft. I think it'd be a lot more accessible to people and make it a little bit easier to actually play the game.
Especially if they did do just the popper boosters. If it was still like the 14, 15 card packs for that, then you could charge maybe $8, I'm thinking. Because you're probably going to have them at be like $2 a pack and then $2 for the store for running the draft. And then you just draft a popper draft league.
Yeah. And covering the price support or whatever it might be at that point too, which I think it'd be good. And I think popper needs more attention than what it gets. So I'm always here for it.
Also, it's just an interesting idea to have a popper draft. Because I know that there are probably some people that have done popper cubes.
I would love to do a popper cube. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Cheap as hell, too.
Oh, yeah.
I've helped build one or two. They're all right. They're interesting.
You can do that, or you could, I guess, it'd be weird to proxy a popper cube, but like at a certain bulk of purchasing, I guess. But it is, and there can be some pricier commons and stuff in there, like a Lotus
The
Petal.
Colossal Dreadmaw.
Woo! I want to make a commander draft cube.
Yeah.
I've been working really hard on the formulating that.
Like 100 cards or 60 cards?
100 card.
I don't want to sit through that.
Brandon Sanderson did that for his Game Nights episode. And I'm pretty sure he might have had somewhere it built. So you can take a look at it for that. They even added in cards.
Little like events and stuff, like you can add like a 5th color to your commander and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember that. That was a weird episode. I liked it, but it was weird.
But stuff like that, like it's not just, oh yeah, pick some cards up and build a deck and call it a day. Like there'd be interesting, fun little rules to add.
Try to find synergies as you're going. So that'd be cool. Definitely interesting, but I think it'd be cool altogether. We'll just hop right into our comment. So, last time, obviously, with the one episode hiatus, we were talking about why your guild is trash. Today, we're going to be talking about all 10 guilds, what they bring to the table, why people love these particular guilds. Everyone has a preference, but we're going to go over all of them and why someone might make it their favorite. So, starting out here, we have our nice garden hippies that are Selesnya.
Well, Selesnya, you got me there. You make a lot of dudes. And you make them at an efficiency that is what's the word I'm looking for? Irresistible is not the word I'm looking for, but a very bombastic rate. It's impressive.
A plethora of dudes.
Yeah, that. And they're not even just small boys. They're big boys.
Yeah.
You make some 8/8s.
Honestly, the rate that Selesnya gets a lot of the lands out, making dudes, just having a lot of quality, big, chunky dudes as well. Because Selesnya is just about the dudes and
not a lot of keywords, not a lot of complication. Just going to make a board. Can I borrow your playmat? I need extra room. And just go. So for straightforward, more of a please don't cast Cyclonic Rift kind of a thing. But hey, it can be a lot of fun. Like I remember when I first got into this game, like I had played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was like, wait a minute, you can have more than 5 creatures? They're like, yeah, as many as you want. I was like, oh my God. And like, I remember just someone attacked me for the first time and I had like 3 or 4 blockers and they sent like 7 things like, oh, 4 are going to get through no matter what. I'm like, this is interesting. Always have a little sweet spot in my heart for Selesnya and just the token generators. If I were to give each of these, which I'll be going with today, it's kind of a yearbook, most likely. This is going to be also most likely to keep your board safe. They have so many ways to make sure that their board does not get blown up because usually if a Selesnya gets board wiped, they are in trouble.
there's also a lot of the good enchantments that go along with it.
Oh, yeah.
Usually you'll see a lot more anthems in their enchantments or card draw because Selesnya is also one of the prominent enchantress decks. So you're also going to see every single enchantress that you possibly can.
Yeah, you are, in fact, Selesnya, the backbone of Enchantress.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on here, we have probably one of the more controversial guilds, which is the Simic Combine. So Simic, as far as yearbook goes, I would say it is most likely to be able to do stuff. No matter what's happening, it may take some time, but you will always have something to do on your turn. They don't ever really fizzle out. It might take them some time, but you're always going to be able to draw or play lands or something like that. And there are some interesting Simic commanders out there.
Kudos to you. You're the safest ramper there is.
For all of the things that we deride you for of card draw and ramp, they are still quite necessary to the game. And especially if you are combined with other colors, they can lean on you to help progress their game plan when it probably wouldn't be as strong if they didn't have access to the blue or green.
And you have the glorious ability to be anyone you want to be. If you aren't in the lead and there's a guy challenging everybody, you're the only person who can go, yeah, we can become the enemy to stifle the enemy. Oh, you have all of the nuts and the biggest legendary creature? Now I do, and now we have one more person to contend to the person who needs to be taken down a peg.
Plus, Simic also has some of the weirdest creature combinations, and I love that.
Yeah, you love your weird shapeshifters and a lot of your gigantic snakes.
Or
Octopi.
Or the crocodile turtle that they released in Murders at Karlov Manor.
Yeah, crocodile turtle something.
I think a part of it too is like we do give them flack for not being able to close out games, but at least in the casual setting, obviously there's a lot of CDH commanders that are very, very good at closing out games. But if I were to like just pick 5 random legends from Simic, like you have like a super elf / combos in Kinnan, you can do landfall with AC, then you can go over and do an enchantress deck with Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief. Then you can go and do some cloning shenanigans with Volo. And then, oh yeah, while we're at it, we're going to do a little Voltron strategy with Coma. Like, you can do pretty much whatever you want because you have the best draw and the best ramp, and that's pretty sweet.
And on top of that, you're one of the only colors that can take all 5 of these things you listed, probably be able to like put them in some semblance of a deck, and it can function relatively okay.
Turns out if you're drawing cards and ramping a bunch, you can do a whole lot of things.
Yep.
Yeah, you have the versatility to be like, but why not both?
Stagnant is not a word you would use to describe Simic.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. A word that I would use to describe Stagnant, though, would be Boros. But with that being said, Boros does have a lot of positive features.
Absolutely.
You have the best choo-choo.
You have your Voltron. Like everyone jokes about, like, oh, it's another Boros equipment deck because they keep making them. But if you're wanting to go with that strategy, it's hard to find anything more elite. It's good about getting damage, making a board, and keeping it safe.
Yep.
It is a very, very strong color combination. Back in the day, we used to kind of harp on them because you had white and red, and neither of them were particularly good with card advantage. So it was hard to run that as a legitimate threat. But as of late, with cards like you have your Smothering Ties, and you have what was the card that got in trouble for the art scandal? Trouble in Pairs. Like you're getting a lot more cards that just give you that residual card advantage in white, and the red got Impulse Draw, which was a new kind of mechanic, exiling something you can play on this turn. If they have the mana for it, great. If not, kind of feels bad, but that's just kind of the part of your game. And it's adding a lot of versatility to this color combination that really was kind of stagnant prior to this.
Well, a lot of the impulse draw also got better because they removed or at least changed the clause from until end of turn to until the end of your next turn.
That is one thing I would complain about is you almost have to read every individual card to see like what iteration of impulse draw this is. And you had to like make like 3 different piles. Like this is still end of turn, end of next turn.
Because some of the cards that they print are still in that until end of turn, which can be a little feels bad if you don't pay attention to that, but it is still a lot better to get that until the end of your next turn.
And also, kudos to you. When it comes to quality of creature keywords, you tend to be the best. No one does First Strike, Vigilance, Trample like you do sometimes.
And they've also gotten good shells for just artifact decks in general, especially with like Osgear.
Osgear was fantastic. You've got, remember Firesong and Sunspeaker?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
one hasn't seen as much play, but that was a very, very interesting build.
And we
whenever
still
it came
have
out.
like instant Speed Feather.
It is quickly approaching taking away number 1 from Winota. I think at some point in the future it will, just because we got that Miku secret lair that had the feather, so it is starting to make that comeback.
Oh yeah, I know at least a lot of my friends from the anime scene were like, oh yeah, I'm building a feather deck with Hatsune Miku right now.
Also, you can build the whole deck for like a whopping like $30
Yeah.
after you get the Miku super expensive commander. But if you already bought the precon or the secret lair, go for it.
Especially given how some secret lairs have just shot up in price after their initial release.
Othari, Sun's Glory,
Yeah.
Your boy.
fantastic
my-
card.
my
Aurelia,
man's right there.
Wylith. Brian Stadarm was someone we don't see very often, but a very cool commander.
But Brian, the professor, loves running that deck.
Damn you, Brian, throwing your infect damage at me using your beautiful creature.
I mean, you have a lot of different ways. Now, it's mostly like attacking strategies like Alibu, but Alibu feels very, very different from Orthari and a lot of this stuff. So it's a way to kind of keep in the same realm, but be doing different things. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, and Alibu does, in fact, kind of marry the attack and artifact strategies together.
And if you ever played against one of those decks, it can be terrifying. Like I've gone against a few. I've been lucky in which player got a little greedy and made everything into artifacts, and I top decked a Vandal Blast.
Oh, are you talking about our good friend Chase?
Mana Curves got bodied on that one, but it's all good.
They learned.
How dare you fuck up my homie like that?
I mean, they played the card. I just had the Vandal Blast.
It's not their fault, man.
It was a little bit their fault.
Yeah, okay, fine.
That is an incredibly greedy card to play.
It's not your... Don't worry, Chase. It's not your fault. I stand with you.
But outside of that, I think that Boros is a phenomenal color, especially if you're in the we are just going to attack stuff and we're going to do good old-fashioned magic by punching. It is the best you can get.
Can my creatures punch your creatures?
Going outside of the world of punching here, the next on our list is Rakdos. The Circus of Chaos, as it were.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the downsides that we also said for Rakdos also are their upsides. They're really good at removing the key pieces that may be hampering you. They can skirt around a lot of the indestructible creatures that are running around, or even warded hexproof by just saying, hey, you, the player, sack that thing.
And on top of that, they are probably the only player who you bump your chest and you go, come at me, bro. To which, instead of the creature or giant flample thing you were expecting, they just bolt you in the face and you die.
Plus, just the amount of different kind of Rakdos strategies
Mhm.
that you can get into as well. Because you have like Prosper that likes to give you its version of the impulse draw that we
Mhm.
talked about
Yep.
until your next turn.
And treasures.
Get your treasures, which is one of the rampant things within Red.
The glass cannon of Rowan, Scion of War.
Yep, but I did lose to one of those in Command Fest Atlanta.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
also have one of my favorite all-time commanders in your color combo, which is the Master from the Doctor Who set.
Yep, the Master with,
Master multiplied.
Yes.
Yeah, the legend rule doesn't apply to creature tokens you control. Triggered abilities you control that cause you to sacrifice or exile tokens do not trigger.
Yeah, you would be the one color group that I don't normally play that takes the mechanic I love one of the most of and goes, you know what? I got you, friend, and gives it to me.
Yes, it also likes to do thieving things, and I like that.
And it's incredibly good at damage. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best color combinations of just straight, we're going to hit you with stuff that's not combat. Like, you're
We're-
going to get drained here, left, right, and center.
We are going to get those life totals down.
Like I
And
told you, the one color combination you can depend on to be like, what are you going to do? Come at me? Proceeds to bolt you in the face. Oh no.
Yeah.
You did what I asked, but not in the way I hoped.
And also introduced a commander to do more death touch on your instants and sorceries.
Death touch and lifelink, baby.
You've got, in one color combination, you have Impulse Draw, and you have kind of like high risk, high reward. You have stealing, you have graveyard reanimation. You have like massive heavy hitting stuff with Rakdos, Lord of Riots. Like anything you could possibly want to do in Magic, as long as it's not just like super conservative, you can do in Rakdos. It is a very high variance. Let's go and just do as much crazy stuff as we possibly can in one color combination as possible. And for that, I think you're amazing.
Yeah.
Most likely to be the most unpredictable. Well, I'll say for the yearbook.
I like this positivity. This is much better.
All right. Next one on, funny you mentioned that. Next one on the list is the Glorious Azorius.
I take it back.
How
dare you do this to me?
It's okay. I will give you this, Zorius. You are many things. A tax collector, an alms collector, an arms collector. But you are the most fair person when it comes to everyone has to do the thing, most likely.
See, even if I rag on Azorius as much as I do, I can see that there's just a lot of different strategies for Azorius out there as well. Because there's the Urza Prince of Crew, which I loved for a bobbleheads deck, and even saw a version of that on the Spike Feeders, because
Sure.
they played that. Then, of course, you have your more control-y pieces like Lavinia, Azorius Renegade. You have some of your interesting pieces of trying to draw more cards if somebody attacks you with that one Sphinx. I cannot remember his name.
Asperia?
Yeah.
You are also the only color combination to give me a vehicle as a commander. And as someone who had a vehicles deck before that came out, let me tell you, appreciated.
Yeah, we love
Deeply appreciated.
Shorkai's elite.
we love a Shorkai.
Shorkai might be one of my favorite cards in Magic. And of course, my signature deck, Brago King Eternal, is in Azorius. Fantastic card.
I won't give that to you as a positive.
Oh,
That's
a
always a
positive.
negative.
That is positively the most positive thing.
Look, if anything, I'm going to continue saying it is the most negative thing ever, regardless of this being a positive episode.
If you are in a group that is a bit more tolerable, you need someone to kind of slow things down on the power creep. It is the best color combination to say, hey, we're going to chill out a little bit here. And you have stuff like Grand Arbiter Augustin IV. You have Hilda the Icy Crown. You have even stuff like Lavinia Azorius Renegade. And then you have some of this new wave of stacks where it's not necessarily like I'm doing a negative thing to you, but if you are going to start doing more things, I'm going to get more things with like the Council of Four. And we're having this like anti-stacks. Like, do I want to do stuff and make this person better, or am I just going to kind of hold back?
I will say, I would love to make a Council of 4 deck just on its own. From what I've seen of like Jim from the Spike Feeders and just the card itself doing work, having that as just part of your command zone actually makes me like the card.
And just like as a comment I said before, you are the backbone of any multicolored stacks deck. You create the spine that is the deck.
And as far as yearbooks go, it is voted most successful creator of all things awesome in the universe, mostly because the Azorius player was probably the one who edited the yearbook.
By the way, did you even do that for Boros and Rakdos?
Rakdos was most likely to do something unpredictable, and Boros was most likely to get into a fight.
Throwing hands.
Next one is Orzhov.
Okay, so Orzhov, first off, love your graveyard and death shenaniganry. Do love me a nice death loop, especially with like Teysa. Teysa is wonderful.
You're the only color combination I accept a loop from out of decks I own. I have a Radadravic deck that I love to death, and it does the loops thing like you mentioned. And it's one of the only color combinations that does stuff that I wouldn't normally accept, but it does it in a way that draws interest to me. Like another one is the new Kambal they made, where when people make tokens, you make tapped tokens of them, and it has additional, like there's more to it than that. But having a strategy where all of your killed target permanent thing give them a token actually has like follow through and also gives you other value is really neat.
Yeah, if Azorius is the spine of stacks, Orzhov is the claws of stacks.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, here I will say, pre-Strixhaven, this may have not been the case, but ever since Strixhaven, I would argue that Orzhov is far and away the best political color combination. Like they have things like Brina, and you have Ink Shield, and you have Duelist Heritage, and a lot of things in this colors of I'm going to incentivize my opponents to do things, possibly giving out bounty counters, or you attack this way, you get to draw a card, and you have more abilities to kind of play the player versus play the game.
Even just Shadrix. Shadrix is a wonderful political piece because then you get to dole out exactly what you need to which player you need it to.
Or a super, super hype two-headed giant where it's just like, yeah, me and my boy, we're going to stompies.
Yep.
Absolutely. And if you want to be a bastard, double Shadrix.
Hey.
Everybody going crazy. And, it also has some of the incentive stuff, like when you cast your second spell, you make a treasure token, lose life with Lotho. Granted, usually used on higher power tables, but there's a lot of really cool things going on in Orzhov.
Well, even then, Lotho can actually see more casual play because it's only just second spell, create a treasure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're ramping. You're more likely to see that in a more casual pod than Nadu, which literally the last episode we recorded, I told Jacoby about how someone brought a Nadu deck to a casual pod.
I mean, I guess you could technically attempt it, but
no,
you can't.
They in fact had Shuko. They in fact had the Greaves. They in fact comboed off.
Yeah.
It was not a casual game.
Well, that's obviously HPC at that point. It's going to be a high power casual. I don't think there's any way to build it. Even if you're running like Swiftfoot Boots instead of Lightning Greaves, like you're still going to get like 6 cards deep per turn.
The biggest thing that he said is that I don't get to normally play this because like my entire usual play group also built Nadus. Like, okay, go find somebody who wanted to play that, because even if you didn't have all of the CDH pieces, it still runs like a CDH deck.
I think, with Nadu at your commander at the helm and you're kind of adding the support pieces, like you're going to put in Shuko if you're running Nadu. There's really no reason not to. But it is, I think, one of those cards that it is de facto going to be a high power casual deck, kind of like Urza, and there's not much else you can really do about it. I have put it in my 6 Doctor deck as like a extra way of adding some hexproof.
The look of disgust on Joe's face the moment
that brings us right back to Orzhov. You're great at also exiling that bullshit.
It does have the best removal package in all of Magic. I will give it that. You get stuff like Vindicate and Anguish Unmaking and all the other good removal spells that are kind of like destroy target thing. I don't care what it is.
Or exile target thing.
See you later.
That is not coming back unless you have like a pull from eternity. And even then.
Merciless Eviction was really good, and then we made Farewell and kind of fell off.
And also Flavor Flea, my best removal spell. That's not technically a removal spell, but it is. Dismember.
Dismember is pretty nice.
I'm going to look at you and I'm going to rip your arms off. And if you're still alive after that, well, kudos to you.
Moving on to the next one here. And Orzhov, of course, is most likely to steal your lunch money.
That makes sense. And charge you interest.
Next one up is the guild that doesn't exist, Dimir. Also rated number 1 on our list of favorite guilds in our poll.
Top of the rank of just bringing in some of the more powerful things. Dimir is, if we had to do the backbone analogy again, the backbone of powerful decks.
At least at this point in time, yeah.
Yeah.
If you are trying to do something powerful, you are usually in some form of Dimir because you are going to have every tutor available to you to do the powerful thing.
Yeah, Dimir Plus.
Because while we won't necessarily always see a Dimir commander, the Lord of the Nazgul is probably one of the coolest ones that I've seen in recent days. But you also just have really cool kindred synergies with Yuriko and ninjas, Wilhelt and zombies.
Captain Ningathrod and horrors.
Scarab God and more zombies.
Scarab God and your creatures becoming my zombies.
I mean, it's one of the decks that actually made Wraith Tribal a neat, interesting tribe.
Toxfrill and 1/1 slug creature tokens.
All right, now, come on now.
yeah.
Relax.
Look, we were trying to keep this positive. You brought in a negative.
Oh,
a -1.
I'm positively positive that y'all are going to die.
Hey.
But all jokes aside, it is if Azorius is the best in stacks, Dimir is the best in control. Having the ability to hit somebody's hand, hit somebody's graveyard, hit somebody's library, hit somebody's creatures, whatever it might be, they have a way to get rid of it. Your spell on the stack. See you later.
And also, they have the better way to be like, okay, well, it ended up dying some point. Now I need it.
They have a pretty good recursion engine usually for anything and not just like creatures.
Recursion, they're capable of theft. They're usually very, very high in evasion. The only thing that they're not
Theft.
particularly good at outside of a couple of kindreds is brute force.
Theft? Theft? I heard my favorite word.
Stop it.
No. Give me.
All that aside, I do think that it is probably the most likely to get your spell countered. If
Yeah.
we're going to go with the yearbook. I do really appreciate Dimir, and that's why a lot of people think Esper players are the most toxic because you get that control package where that stacks in the same person,
Yeah.
and that is brutality for the rest of the table, or artifacts. Next up is most likely to get the chemistry lab in the high school blown up. Is it?
It has so many fun toys.
It's not boring.
It is definitely not boring.
It's
It
not
also-
consistent, but it's not boring.
It's also a little bit more cerebral because you do, in fact, have to think more about what you are doing. And I think the challenge of trying to be more cerebral and thinking about what you are playing and in which sequence you're playing it can assist in making you a better player. It's like constantly going in and playing chess in a game of Magic because you need to make sure that you are doing the right moves at the right time.
I would compare it more to Tetris.
I would not. I would compare it more to chess because of the guilds, they are more like in their yearbook most likely to have straight A's. Because out of all of the other ones, they're the only ones that have to always reestablish their lines. So they have to every single game evaluate, reevaluate, triple evaluate. Like, okay, this line, if functions right, is the right path to get me all of the desired effects. Leaves me with a bonus, leaves this guy in this position, and that's also assuming he has XYZ. Like, they're the one player out of all of these guys who, instead of a counter spell when you cast something, thinks about, like, okay, hold up. I could choose to let that resolve and then do X, and then their plan's just brought to ruin.
As the person who said that they loved Is It the most, I will in fact meet you halfway. It's in fact Tetris chess.
The reason I said Tetris is because as things are coming in, you have to find out kind of what to do with them on pace. Like, it's a little bit harder to strategize. Like, things are going to keep coming at you. And at some point, you have to find your window and go for it. Or it's too late, and then you get that weird little square in the middle of your Tetris board, and you can't get it, and then it floods up and you lose.
Life comes at you fast. But the developments that have happened within Tetris, even in the last few years, have been very interesting because they've added in rolling into the controller for Tetris that got people even higher levels than was once previously thought. And what happens is rolling is that you literally use the back of your hand to roll the controller to literally move the piece faster than it was normally thought possible, which was rave when a 10-year-old kid did it. I want to say last year.
Yeah, shout out to like the 10-year-olds that are bored enough to just like try this stuff and then shatter records.
Literally, that's also another thing that you can say about is that they are the ones that will most experiment to try and make something work, even if it may not initially be possible.
They told me I couldn't make my wizard's punch, dudes. They told me the prowess would be lame. chokes on them. I would like to swing for 55, please.
I think my only possible gripe with is a lot of their commanders are a little bit one-dimensional for my taste. And then like Garrison Starn is just kind of off in its own little world.
That was covered in negative episodes, that a lot of them are, in fact, pretty samey. For being an experimental guild, it's not really experimenting with the commanders. It makes me sad a little bit.
It's a little odd that all of them just do the same thing, and the idea is just that they experiment. But I think that, conceptually speaking, the experiments are what instants and sorceries you put in. That's where the experimentation is, and that's how they're choosing to strive. It's like all of them do something with instants and sorceries.
For the most part, or artifacts. There's a lot of artificers in that. You've got your Joyras and your Brutaclads and different artifact synergies, or a little bit of like Galazeth Prismari, where you have like artifacts you can tap for instants and sorcery, so you bridge the gap a little bit. Also, if you run Winter Orb in Galazeth Prismari, a big fan of you. That's fantastic.
Oi.
But on a more positive note, Gruul Smash.
Gruul Smash. I'm going to say that along with Selesnya, they are one of the easiest ways to get someone to learn the game and enjoy the game, because Gruul Smash.
So for me, Gruul is kind of like that kind of weird kid that everybody loves because he just doesn't give a shit about anything, and he just ends up doing a lot of like really cool things.
Oh, hey, me when I
most
was
likely
younger.
to not give a shit.
Like we had a thrower on our team that like had dreads and then feathered his hair, and it was just like this like 6'3", 260-pound white kid out of Wisconsin, and like he could out-throw everybody, and like he did the most devious stuff, and like he'd paint his fingernails, and then he would just go in and like kick everyone's ass. And like he just was very much the beat of his own drum. Like he had a scholarship to go throw at Marquette, like D1. It left in the first week, just wasn't feeling the vibes. Like very volatile. But he was a team captain. Like we loved him. National champion.
My God.
But like Gruul is very much that kind of energy where they just do not care about what anyone else is doing. Hey, I'm gonna go play Sfella and make a bunch of monoliths, and then I'm just gonna keep shitting out creature after creature after creature until you tap.
Or Roxanne. And pelting people with meteorites.
Or Kibo and just blowing up artifacts and making bananas. Like,
or Rurik Thar and just saying, oh, was that a non-creature spell? Domed.
Or
Atali and just ruining everyone's day. Or Omnath and just ruining everyone's day. Or Radadragon and just ruining everyone's day.
No. The time has passed. It's okay.
No, say it.
No.
Do
It's
it.
fine. No.
Do what you want.
Do it.
No.
Do what you
Do
want.
it.
No.
Do it.
No.
Do it. Give it a peer pressure, kids.
No.
Don't do that. That's a bad idea. From a former teacher, no less.
Who do you think wasn't peer pressure in the kids?
Jesus Christ.
As a residential Gruul player, no.
That's not fun.
For our audio listeners, since this is an audio podcast, Jacoby has flipped off Levi.
There's a bird in here.
It flapped very silently in Levi's face.
It'll flap like Klauth does and gives me endless mana in all of its Gruul glory.
Well, most likely to not give a shit. And then finally, we have most likely to be a little bit too into life and death, Golgari.
Yes.
Goth Kids rise up.
Look, everybody dreams about their goth girlfriend. Everybody. We stand a goth girlfriend. Don't you do that to me. Don't you do that to me.
He's not liking it.
Don't you do that to me. Jacoby, don't you do this to me.
Remember when this used to be a Magic the Gathering podcast and we didn't go off into random tangents? Pepperidge Farms, remember.
Goth Dommy Mommy.
No.
Stop it.
Never. I will stand amongst the ashes as I fight for this cause of my goth girlfriend, Golgari.
But
What do you think is happening?
But hear me out. If I resurrect the ashes, if I raise dead on
it will make the goth girlfriend that is Golgari happy.
What the hell are we talking about right now?
if I raise,
I went off my own tangent.
hear me out. If I cast raise dead
Come back
on
to
that
us.
steak you're eating, do I get the whole cow?
Or would the cow like regenerate in like other places where the rest of the body is?
Do we self-duplicate all of the cow?
No, I'm pretty sure the piece of steak just immediately lets out a sound that is akin to Edward and just traumatizes everybody at the dinner table. Yeah, that stopped that thought process dead in its tracks.
Do it again.
But yeah, Golgari has a lot of fun pieces. It's also dealing with the graveyard. And usually it's dealing with creature recursion from the graveyard, as well as lands. That's why we have our Gate Rock monsters. We have, what is the Golgari experience? Why am I
Marin?
Marin of Clan Neltoth. Thank you.
You've got Yargle and Multani randomly, just an 18-6.
Because people like Big Frog.
I will say my previous comment of, yeah, you don't know the difference between your graveyard and your deck, and the negative, like in the positives, you're the only one who really makes it look like a second deck. And that is an impressive thing on and of its own, where it's like, oh no, actually pays attention to the entire graveyard. You could get this back and this back and this back and this back instead of or.
For the most part, a lot of the self-mill strategies that Golgari likes to implement also doesn't hinder them with like their land drops usually for like an experienced Golgari pilot, because they run a lot of self-mill effects, which just help them in the long run.
Necromancers Unite. Most likely to be a little bit into life and death. We got our Golgari, and that completes all 10 guilds of Ravnica.
And that was only at the end that I became truly unhinged.
Getting to the 10th one, I was expecting around 5, so I was gone for one episode. Y'all went on
You
rails.
superseded all expectations, Joe. How does it feel?
I'm ready for my goth girlfriend now, please.
And you lost. All right, so this week we are drafting legendary spells that are not creatures or planeswalkers. And note that I said spells, so legendary lands like Gaia's Cradle do not count. And without further ado, we're going to go over the draft order, and then we will jump right in for this particular draft. Jacoby, you have pick number 1. Then I will be at number 2. Joe, you are at pick number 3. You'll have 4, and then we'll go in reverse order for 4 rounds as we normally do. And Jacoby, you are on the clock.
It's gotta be the thumb. Kirk's thumb, baby.
How could I have known?
Let me put on my shocked face. For those at home, it's the same face I normally have.
I don't know. It actually looked a little more shocked. Your eyes got a little wider.
I thought I saw a little bit of an O.
Nope.
No, that was just the microphone, apparently.
Just the microphone. So for those who don't know, Clark's Thumb allows you to flip an additional coin as it's going through and picking the result. So for Clark and Thrasios, it's a really, really good card. It's almost like giving him his thumbs is a pretty great thing.
Seriously. Though I don't know what his other thumb has to do with rolling dice.
It's a gambling card.
Yeah, but he doesn't even do dice rolls. And there were dice rolls when he was introduced.
I feel like it would be hard. I think it'd be kind of hard to like cup your hands to roll dice without your thumbs. Because I feel that's just really
we got
awkward.
it. We got it.
But you had to think about it.
He doesn't, because he doesn't have his thumbs. He did just his entire life.
He's never positive or negative. No thumbs up, no thumbs down.
Thumbs neutral.
Anyways, that's my pick.
Thumbs off.
He took his thumbs off.
You guys are f***ed up.
All right. Well, for my next pick here, I am looking at probably the most famous card in recent Magic, the One Ring.
Oh, man. Here, let me put on my shocked face.
Yeah, mine too.
Comes in, you have protection from everything, although your board does not. And then you get to tap it to draw a card for each counter you have on it. Every time you tap it, you get another counter. One of the most powerful cards in Magic at this particular moment. Absolute staple if you're going for higher power. It is a fantastic card. Can't say enough about it. And Post Malone's got one that's worth $2.6 million.
And there have been some scalpers that try to swindle people on eBay saying, no, I got the real one. After Post Malone still like, yeah, I have it. What?
That's absolutely insane that people are actually falling for that. Like, I understand it'd be cool to have like a replica in your house somewhere just for fun. But like, if someone's paying for $2.6 million for it, like they're clearly doing their due diligence to make sure it's not a fabrication. And it got graded. So I don't understand why that's part of the conversation anymore.
It's crazy.
But Joe, you are on the clock. You've got picks 3 and 4.
Gotta love it. So obviously, the first one on my list is Karn's Temporal Sundering. A nice 6-drop extra turn spell. Says return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And then you exile it. I have loved this card as an extra turn spell. I tried to really make it work in like Cody and Halden and Paco. Halden and Paco specifically in like CDH didn't work all that well. Notably,
It's a 6-drop.
6-drop spells that also exile themselves. Not really good at CDH.
Nope. Considering you can do a 5-mana spell with Ad Nauseam and pretty much draw most of your deck. So
Yeah, but honestly, some of the magical Christmas land of I'm going to cast this spell and then return the dockside that I just used to get like 14 treasures back in my hand so I could do it again next turn.
if you play it in the 6th Doctor, it becomes a double bounce and time stretch.
Gross.
A lot of fun. But you have your next pick here as well.
And this is where we start to get a little bit weird. I don't know if I want to go for my second or third pick. I don't think that either of you are going to choose them, maybe Jacoby. But I think the first one that I want to go with is the Deck of Many Things.
Was not on my list.
Was not on my list.
So the Deck of Many Things, 5-drop, you pay 2, you tap it, you roll a d20 and subtract the number of cards in your hand. If the result is 0 or less, discard your hand. 1 through 9, return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. 10 through 19, draw 2 cards. 20 is where the money goes, and this is the main reason why they have a subtraction clause. Put a creature card from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. When that creature dies, its owner loses the game.
That's a high pressure.
It is. Notably, you literally have to jump through so many hoops to get to that. You have to be hellbent, no cards in hand. You have to roll a natural 20. Also really hard to do. You could try to do that till the cows come home.
And it has to die, the creature.
Yeah, it also has to die.
So if it gets pathed or something, it doesn't matter.
It also requires your opponents to have creatures in their graveyard.
Which sometimes not the case. There's been some games in which like no board wipes really happen, or like it's been a farewell or something like that.
Yeah, which means that sometimes you have to put a creature you own from your own graveyard in, which means that you are now able to lose the game.
Have fun.
But I love this kind of card, and I have loved it ever since I put it into my Mr. House deck. It is probably one of the most fun cards that they created from the D&D set.
I'm going to go with a very stereotypically me card next, being it is one of my favorite card types of all time that it supports. Got to go with the Chain Veil. Chain Veil tapping for 4 mana. All your planeswalkers get to activate their planeswalker abilities one more time. There's so many ways for that to go infinite or just accrue extra value. Oh, we've got a couple turns before this Nico Bolas ultimates. Nope, it's going to happen right now. Or, oh, this creature lets me untap things. Well, I'm not going to go infinite, but I've got enough mana now to activate this another 5 times and ult this planeswalker, or I can bounce everything you have. Or there's a lot of degeneracy that can happen with the Chain Veil, and it is a fantastic card.
Yeah, especially if you play planeswalkers after you've activated it like 5-6 times.
Yep, because they'll come in and they'll see all those activations.
And you just keep going.
Back in the day, one of the original Teferis was a CDH caliber deck that was just using that in the Chain Veil.
It still sees CDH play today.
So it is phenomenal because you hit it, you have to go to the command zone, comes back in, you get all the activations again, untap a bunch of stuff, infinite mana, do mono blue degenerate stuff.
My next pick is the Wand of Orcus. This is equipped creature, has Death Touch, and when it deals combat damage to a player, make that many 2/2 zombies. I love it so much. It's so cool. I don't ever get it to do the thing very often because everyone's a snob. But
oh, they don't want to give you a bunch of zombies? What?
That's crazy.
And then they want to sit here and be like, it's so bad. I'm like, all right, I wish to swing. They're like, oh no, we path that creature. Never, not on your life. I'm like, if it's so bad, why are you so scared? You coward.
It's so bad because it can be blocked and nothing happens.
It's got Death Touch, man. Just have a trampling creature. Don't be a coward.
I mean, they have a right to be a little bit of a coward to prove themselves right that it is not the best card.
I never
But
said it was the best.
also, I'm there with you. I love that card.
That card's good. That card's cool.
Definitely can be solid, especially in like a deck that cares about zombies or just a lot of black creatures hitting the battlefield.
I even made a Pendragon deck with that as the Excalibur with Slippery Boggle.
Sure, why not?
Gross.
Look, I just wanted Sultai smash you in the face with a boggle.
Fair enough.
And you'd get there.
My third pick is Luxior. Because what's cooler than having a planeswalker for your commander? Having a planeswalker that turns into a creature.
And here I thought you were going to ask, what's cooler than being cool?
I suppose.
Ice cold.
There you go. This is why we're friends.
All right, fellas.
Yeah.
And okay, thank you. I was very disappointed. I did your reference. You did my reference.
I did it. I got you. It came full circle.
Very salty.
Luxior's great piece. Outside of making Planeswalker into a creature, also breaks the druid. Just another one that breaks that druid.
Yep.
Oh, gee willikers. Who would have guessed?
Back to me. I have probably a good 3 or 4 very legitimate contenders here that I'm hoping that I can get a couple as we're going through. But for the next one, I am going to grab Mox Amber.
Makes sense.
So Mox Amber, 0 mana rock, but can only tap for colors that legendary creatures or planeswalkers you control have. So this is very good in like Rograk decks when you have a 0 mana red creature that comes into play automatically. You can get that on turn 1. If not, it's considered probably one of the more fair Moxes we have just because you have to have a legendary creature on board to use it versus the other ones. Or Planeswalker. So I do really enjoy it. I run a lot of historic or legendary type decks because that's the type of creatures I like to play with. So I play this card a lot. I've met the artist. I've got him to sign a couple of them. Big fan of this card. I will use it until the day I die.
I'm still usually iffy on it, mainly because it goes in very specific decks. And even then, you have to be more reliable of getting out a legendary creature from your hand by just being full legendary historic, or you need to have a consistent Rograk.
Yeah. Well, when you have 30 of them suckers in your deck, you don't really care anymore. It's going to happen.
At least for me, going into my third and last picks, the third pick is one recent win condition that they printed that I still love. It's the Millennium Calendar. A nice little 1-drop legendary artifact. Whenever you untap 1 or more permanents during your untap step, put that many time counters on Millennium Calendar. Tap 2, tap it, double the number of time counters on Millennium Calendar. When there are 1,000 or more time counters on the Millennium Calendar, sacrifice it and each opponent loses 1,000 life.
Just in case that one person's at 1,010. You just gotta activate it twice.
We get in there. I've loved this card. I still want to build more decks around it because it's such an interesting effect, especially since you keep doing the untap 1 or more permanents during your untap step. This means that you're kind of going to be shying away from Unwinding Clock because it's not going to help you. I mean, it can help you in the ways that it then activates the second ability a little bit more frequently. And then you do the compounding interest that is doubling, and doubling. It's the same. If you've ever heard of the thought experiment of if you were given the choice of having a penny at first and it doubles each day for a month versus $10,000 direct, what's the best one to get? And it's the penny that doubles until the end of the month, because you will have over $1 million if that happens.
Yeah. And just to kind of put this in perspective that people kind of find kind of weird, my version of that I love the most is if you had a paper that was big enough to do this, which is a tall order. If you take a piece of paper and you fold it 100 times, it can reach the distance of the moon by just the sheer doubling capacity over and over and over again. It can reach the moon.
Crazy.
Like when we have compounding interest on stuff, like people don't understand how effective it can be for you.
If you don't do it that way, perfectly fine. If you do it the mainstream way of just having it untap it on each of your turns, it's going to get there eventually. And especially in a game like Magic where you're just constantly getting more permanents on the board to untap. But from there, we get to my fourth and final choice, which, gotta love me, a good Steely boy, Realmbreaker the Invasion Tree. Gotta love my, oh, hey, I see you have land in your graveyard. I would like that as my ramp, please.
Rude.
I mean, be as rude as you want. It's 5 mana to do that effect.
Rude.
It is an interesting card, and then it does have an additional effect.
One that I probably wouldn't use all that often, but I know Jacoby would. Just 10, tap it, sacrifice it, search your library for any number of Praetor cards, put them onto the battlefield, and shuffle.
Don't judge me.
We're going to judge you because you have this giant Phyrexian tattoo on your hand.
Hey, man, don't hate on me. I like it. It's good stuff.
I mean, yeah, but like if I put I love unicorns in my head and then there was a unicorn card, we'd probably talk about it.
Yeah, just a bit. That being said, it also gets changelings, Jacob.
See, that comment, that right there, that's why it wasn't my first pick.
He's mad that I have my little changelings also come in off of it.
You can kiss my ass with your dumbass changelings.
Oh, bet.
I said can, not will, you fucker.
can still means that I can do it.
You're nasty.
I'm disappointed in all of you.
I mean, that's fair.
Well, it is my turn, and I had my option, but there is one card out here that I cannot, in good conscience, let go undrafted, and that is Shorikai Genesis Engine.
See, I didn't want to pick it because it felt a little bit like cheating.
It's a vehicle. It is not a creature.
I know, I understand. That's why I said a little bit like cheating. I didn't say it was.
Just out of sheer respect, it is the top Azorius commander. As it comes in, it is technically a vehicle. Don't do that. 1 mana and tap it, draw 2 cards, then discard a card, create a 1/1 colorless pilot creature token with this creature cruise vehicles as though it had power 2 or greater. You get extra tokens to protect yourself. You can draw farther in your deck. You can discard cards. You could add a reanimation package if you want to. If you want to do the CDH route, put Humility in the deck. It's hilarious.
Or you just polymorph the pilots into Hullbreaker
Absolutely.
Horror.
Yeah, Hullbreaker Horror, go infinite,
Or
do whatever you want.
Tyrant.
Yeah,
Either
whatever you want. It is a phenomenal combo card. It is a phenomenal value engine. It is one of my favorite cards in Magic history. Shorikai, I could not let you go undrafted. Cannot do it. I will take you with my last pick.
That's fair. With my last pick, I'm going to cheat.
I just talked about not cheating.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to pick all 4 cards in relation to Cauldra.
Or you could just do the living weapon and just call it a day.
No. It must be all 4. For those who don't know, Cauldra Complete was an equipment we got, which was a living weapon. It gave you 5/5, first strike, trample, indestructible. When it deals damage, it exiles that creature. That's in reference to a set of cards a lot of people I have talked to in the past did not know existed, which gave a token you made, a 4/4 token, all of these effects individually.
It was fun. A lot of people do not like the fact that the Cauldra Complete exists. I think it kind of like takes away from the mini game that was putting Cauldra together.
And I say a yes and no, because Cauldra Complete is, in essence, a different time in the completion of it. Haha.
Well, the other difference is that the creature's way smaller.
Yeah, it can be smaller, but I think like if it didn't come with the living weapon or maybe like a Phyrexianized version would have been cool.
The living weapon is the Phyrexianized version.
Because it's a Phyrexian germ.
And
But,
that's
like,
why.
I mean, change the keywords a little bit to be a little bit more Phyrexian is what I mean.
Yeah, instead of exiling the creature, it just gives it infect.
Yeah, or just wither, give it a toxic or something.
I think it was perfectly acceptable exactly the way it was.
I mean,
because-
clearly you did draft it.
Because, like, the thing about it is, right? Cauldra has all of its hoops that it goes through. The Phyrexianization of it is that it comes out, it's already a creature, it's just weaker. But, like, you don't have to jump the hoops. That's the Phyrexianization of it.
Yeah.
They made it better by saying, up front, you're done.
That's at least our draft.
Yep. So to recap here, Jacoby, Krarksthumb, Wand of Orcus, Luxior, and Cauldra. All the Cauldras, I suppose. I had the One Ring, the Chain Veil, Mox Amber, and Shorikai Genesis Engine. Joe had Karn's Temporal Sundering, Deck of Many Things, the Millennium Calendar, and Realm Breaker, the Invasion Tree. Was there any honorable mentions? Because I definitely had one that I would have taken if Shorikai was off the board.
I definitely have 2. Embercleave and Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Agatha's was definitely one that I definitely enjoyed. It is at home in Sisay Weatherlight Captain, and it is a fantastic card all around. It's about anything you could possibly want it to.
Especially with decks that have been using Walking Ballista. And
Yeah.
any way to get more counters onto the creatures.
Reaver Cleaver.
Yeah.
Reaver Cleaver, fantastic card.
Little bonus, little trample. Don't worry about the fact that you make treasure tokens.
Make that money. Of course, mine is one that I really wanted to take, but God Pharaoh statue. Everyone's spells cost 2 more. Every end step, you're dealing 1 damage to everybody.
Why are you like this? Why do you have hate in your soul?
I thought you liked it when I cloned stuff.
Why do you have hate in your soul, Levi?
So you want everything to cost 4 more. Got it.
I hate this.
I've come to realize with this list, I want to make a deck with all the Cauldra stuff and Haunted Play and just like this equipment that turns into creatures.
You know what kind of got lost off of all of our honorable mentions? Helm of the Host.
Helm of the Host, really good. Like Lithoform Engine, fantastic card. Mox
No, those
Opal.
are the obvious picks.
But those are fantastic. The Great Henge.
Meat Hook Massacre.
Meat Hook Massacre was on my list.
Okay.
If you had said that one, that would have been the only one on my list. I think either of you would have hit.
I'm surprised you went with that over like Luxior. I'm surprised you didn't go with Meat Hook Massacre over Luxior.
I considered it, but at this time of recording, on my brain was the deck I had built for, I don't remember what the format's called. I think Oathbreaker, where you have the Planeswalker as a commander, and then you have insert a spell here. And
Instant or sorcery.
Yeah.
That's Oathbreaker.
I had an Oathbreaker deck that focused on Lexior.
Remember when
Really
Wizards
heavily.
made that an official format and then no one gave a shit?
Except for like 3 people for like 2 weeks.
I still have my Oathbreaker deck put together.
When was the
It's-
last time you touched it?
A while ago.
Yeah. Being lazy and not taking it apart does not quantify. Oh, it's still together.
It's still together. I still have it in my bag with me.
But riddle me this.
Yeah. Grandma's still above ground, even though she died 3 weeks ago and starting to smell. It doesn't mean it's still alive and kicking.
Jesus Christ.
Wow. Okay. The positivity of this episode went down real quick.
That's the power of Phyrexians, baby.
And that is all the time we have for this week. Next week, we're going to be going back to some of our more classics. Going to be looking at potentially another hot takes blind ranking.
Nice. And just remember, everybody, if you keep staying positive, sometimes you shoot yourself to legendary status.
What?
We were
How
talking
is
about
that?
positive things and legendary things. What do you want from me?
Better. I want better.
Oh, then let me just shoot for the stars then. If I miss...
in the other direction.
Yes! Guess what? We're on a planet. That's a sky. Everywhere we go up into the sky is more stars.
Just keep in mind, folks.
Apologies to the listeners that had the audio difference
No,
in that moment.
Keeping it real, keeping it raw. Anyways, just remember, everything is a positive experience if you let it be a positive experience until it's not.
Any wise words from you, Negative Nancy?
Case in point, primary example right here. This was a wonderful podcast. It could have been a wonderful Magic game until it wasn't.
Just make everything positive, as in cost more mana.
But
And that is all the time we have. This is the Thought Vessel. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a good week.
take care.
Bye.